After I lost my memory, I found a contact in my phone with the note, boyfriend. So I dialed the number carefully. Excuse me, are you my boyfriend? After a moment of silence, a lazy, pleasant male voice was heard from the other end of the phone. Of course, babe. It was not until my memory came back that I realized I had mistaken my secret crush for my boyfriend. Doesn't the male god hate gays like us the most? I looked at the contact in my phone with the note, boyfriend, and my face wrinkled. After hesitating for a long time, I still dialed the number carefully. The phone rang only twice before someone picked up. I hurriedly asked, "Hello, are you my boyfriend?" There was a dead silence on the phone. That should be right? Just when I was beginning to feel unsure, a lazy male voice sounded from the other end of the line. Of course, babe. The doting and natural name made me feel relieved. I found the right person. It seems I really have a boyfriend. Then can you come to the People's Hospital F01 ward to pick me up? Are you sick? I am embarrassed to explain. I was hit on the head when I went out today, and I lost some of my memory for no apparent reason, but the doctor said there was nothing wrong with my brain. For safety reasons, the doctor asked my family to come pick me up before I could leave. My parents are out of town, so my boyfriend should be considered a family member, right? There was silence on the phone again for a moment, and then the man slowly comforted me. Don't be afraid, I'll be there soon. With this man's assurance, I finally stopped panicking. Ever since I was sent to the hospital, my mind has been in a mess and all my memories are disconnected. The doctor said that I lost some of my memory because I was too nervous and scared. The worst thing is that I actually forgot that I have a boyfriend. I don't know what kind of boyfriend I'm looking for, but since he has such a nice voice, he shouldn't look too bad, right? After all, I am a gay boy who is obsessed with looks. Just when I was so nervous that I kept scratching my hands, the door of the ward was pushed open by a tall and long-legged young boy. He was dressed all in black and had a face like someone who had won the genetic lottery. The eyebrows and eyes are sparse, and the temperament is noble. I was stunned. Isn't this our college hunk, Senior Christopher? Why is he here? When I was in a mess, Christopher was already standing in front of me. He looked me up and down. There seemed to be some emotions in his eyes that I couldn't guess. Suddenly, he leaned towards me, close enough for me to see his dark eyes clearly. What are you daydreaming about, baby? His lazy voice overlapped with the voice on the phone. It seems that he is really my boyfriend. But I'm still a little unsure. Are you my boyfriend? Although I have lost some of my memory, I still remember that your name is Christopher, you are a student in our school, and you are a straight man. Christopher's eyes did not change as he explained in a calm voice. I was indeed a straight man before, but I fell in love with you at first sight and turned gay on the spot. Then I chased you for a long time before I finally got you. As he said this, he took out his cell phone from his pocket and locked the screen. The lock screen wallpaper is my photo. You were the one who forced me to change this, and you threw a tantrum if I didn't. How could I be so shameless when it comes to love? I blinked, somewhat incredulous. I'm sorry, I really don't remember. Christopher touched my head and his voice became warmer. It doesn't matter, as long as you are by my side. The straightforward love words made my ears slightly hot, and I subconsciously rubbed his hand in response, making me feel like a harmless furry little animal. Christopher is totally my ideal type. He is a handsome, outstanding, and gifted child of destiny, but he is only gentle when talking to me. This gives me a place to lean on when I feel confused and lost today. While Christopher went to see the doctor to find out what happened, I turned on my camera and took a sneak shot of his back. Since he has put me as his lock screen wallpaper, I have to do the same. Christopher is very handsome, and any photo of him I take looks as good as a photo in a magazine. But just when I was happily preparing to change the wallpaper, I accidentally discovered that there were many secrets hidden in my mobile phone album. That's a bunch of photos. All Christopher. He eats, plays ball, attends class. I'm such a pervert. She pursed her lips embarrassedly, and the doubts in her heart dissipated a little bit again. At this moment, someone pinched his face gently, and Christopher's voice sounded with a hint of laughter. What are you grinning about? I handed him my phone with a blushing face. Christopher, I have a lot of photos of you in my phone. Christopher's expression suddenly paused. He stared at the screen of my phone, and the emotions in his eyes became dark and difficult to discern. I thought he thought the picture I took was not good, so he apologized softly. Sorry, il delete. Don't be angry, Christopher. Christopher seemed to come to his senses and stopped me. No need to delete it, just keep it. I'm afraid you'll think my photos aren't pretty. No, it was taken very well. Because, unknown to me, you actually like me like this. This makes me so happy, baby. Christopher's voice became a little hoarse, and the emotional fluctuations and enthusiasm in his eyes did not seem fake. He was as excited as if he had suddenly found a treasure. I felt relieved. It seems that Christopher likes me very much, and I really like him too. This made me, a little gay guy, feel soft-hearted, and I obediently let Christopher take me back to school. But when he sent me back to the dormitory, I found that my roommates were all there. Taylor, who was standing opposite the door, saw me and greeted me with a smile. Daniel, what were you doing today? You're usually so well behaved, could it be that? What the hell, Christopher senpai? His voice suddenly rose several degrees when he saw Christopher behind me, causing the other roommates to look at him in surprise. As if he was surprised why Christopher was here. I turned my head in confusion and looked at Christopher, who was standing next to me. My roommate, who I spend every day with, doesn't even know about the relationship between Christopher and I? Christopher is my boyfriend, it's normal for him to send me back. My roommates looked even more confused. When did you become single? No, when did you become bent? So Christopher senpai is also. Looking at the stunned looks of my roommates, I immediately realized something was wrong. Oh no, it seems my roommate doesn't know my sexual orientation. What I just said was equivalent to directly knocking off the vest that I had worked so hard to cover up, and it was like I was exposed on the spot. This amnesia is really the culprit. When I was at a loss, my clenched hands were firmly held by a big hand, and then I heard Christopher speak slowly. Excuse me, I am indeed Daniel's boyfriend. He was afraid that you would be homophobic and hate him, so he never told you. If you feel uncomfortable, you can come to me, don't scare him. Christopher came from a very wealthy family, and almost no one in school dared to offend him. So even though his words were brief and polite, and even contained a hint of smile, they sent an inexplicable chill down one's spine. The roommates shuddered twice and immediately responded in a servile manner. No, it's just a little unexpected. Senior, please come in and sit down. It's so cold outside. Christopher nodded politely and led me inside, as if he was the owner of the place. Seeing how calm he was, I also became calm. Fortunately, Christopher was here, otherwise I would have had a terrible day. This made me rely more on Christopher, and my eyes kept following him. The boy who was telling his roommate that I was suffering from amnesia suddenly glanced at me with a half smile and then pinched my face. Flirtatious and intimate, but still looks serious. If he feels unwell, please call me. I will answer the phone no matter how late it is. My roommates agreed one after another in a flattering manner. Christopher will be leaving soon. When I was just hesitating whether to take him downstairs, he had already pulled him out of the dormitory, leaving behind a roommate with a gossipy look on his face. With my ears flushed, I followed Christopher to the men's dormitory. Fortunately, there are few people at this point. Christopher, you should go back and rest early. Christopher raised his eyebrows slightly, with a hint of teasing. Baby, what did you call me? Christopher. You didn't call me that before. My eyelashes trembled, and I asked him a little embarrassedly, sorry, I really forgot. Can you remind me? Christopher's lips curled slightly. You, call me husband. I was all a bit meowy. The call was so intimate. We are all men, isn't it a bit inappropriate to call them that? I stammered a few times, but shame still prevented me from opening my mouth. Fortunately, Christopher didn't make things difficult for me and gave me a way out. It's okay, you can call me something else. Change your name? Several intimate names flashed through my mind quickly, and finally stopped on one. So I started to speak tentatively. Brother? As soon as he finished speaking, I saw Christopher's eyes change slightly, and then I heard him utter a swear word in a very low voice. "Daniel, you are so good." I was so embarrassed that I didn't dare to say a word, and my eyes were wandering. Because I always felt like Christopher just kissed me. But fortunately, Christopher didn't do anything. He just told me to have a good rest. "Go home. I'll pick you up for class tomorrow morning." I nodded obediently, and then he stroked my head for a long time like he was a cat. After he turned and left, I also walked towards the dormitory. But I couldn't help but look back at him. But unexpectedly, I found Christopher throwing something into the trash can. A tissue soaked with sweat. What is Christopher, such a cool guy, so nervous about? I lost my memory for unknown reasons today, then got a boyfriend who was too outstanding, and then suddenly came out. It was as fast as a rocket. Before I could even react after returning to the dormitory, my roommate started interrogating me with a sly smile. But I was so confused that I didn't remember anything and couldn't really say anything. After my roommates made a few jokes, they told me to have a good rest. Fortunately, they are not homophobic. I secretly breathed a sigh of relief. The roller coaster-like experience of the day left me exhausted both physically and mentally, and I fell asleep as soon as I lay down. As a result, I dreamed of Christopher, a Christopher that was completely different from the Christopher today. He was not beside me, but in the crowd. The moon is surrounded by stars and is flaunted. Half of her face was hidden in the afterglow of the setting sun, and she looked incredibly beautiful. My roommate Taylor whispered to me, "Daniel, did you see that person? He's a senior from the same class as us, named Christopher. He was said to be the top scorer in the college entrance exam that year. His family is very wealthy, and he looks like Daniel Wu. Shit, if there's one more person like me born in Rome, he'll die." My roommate sighed. I smiled and wanted to reply that this was my boyfriend, but no sound came out. When Christopher was trying hard to open his mouth, he was surrounded by a group of boys and left. From beginning to end, I was not seen. Cold and unattainable, which is completely different from the gentleness he showed me today. I was anxious. Why is Christopher ignoring me? As I was in a hurry, the scene in front of me changed and I came to the library. I saw Christopher forgot to bring his library card when he borrowed books from the library. The administrator is also stubborn and won't allow anything without a license. When the atmosphere became tense, I plucked up the courage and took the initiative to hand over my library card. Christopher was stunned for a moment, then he glanced at me sideways while playing with my library card. There is an extremely beautiful arc at the end of the eye. "Daniel? Thank you." I wanted to say "you're welcome," but no sound came out. As I was humming anxiously, I suddenly found myself outside a basketball court. I saw a handsome boy confessing his love to Christopher. The people around suddenly screamed in curiosity and gossip. But Christopher just patted the basketball without raising his head and just uttered a word lazily. "Roll." The boy's face turned pale and he left awkwardly, passing by me who was in a daze. At this moment, Christopher seemed to sense something and looked up at me. His brows were slightly furrowed, and his eyes had an inexplicable look. I turned away with an uncontrollable sullen look on my face, as if I was very fed up with this farce. But the bitterness in my heart overflowed uncontrollably. Is this my old memory or just a dream? If this is a true memory, how can Christopher be homophobic? Then why did he become my boyfriend? So messy. Is there something wrong? 7. These questions made me feel very uncomfortable in my sleep, and I was still a little dazed until someone gently woke me up. Taylor poked me again. "Daniel, your head is covered with sweat. Are you feeling uncomfortable?" I gasped twice and shook my head. "No, I just fell asleep." "That's good. Hurry up and get up. Christopher has been waiting for you downstairs for quite some time." "Christopher?" I quickly got up and looked out the window. Christopher was standing leisurely beside a small flower bed, looking as good as in a picture. He stared straight at the entrance of our men's dormitory, looking like he was in a very good mood. Taylor continued to sigh obscenely. "Brother, how on earth did a good kid like you chase after such a playboy? He even brought you breakfast." It turns out that gay love can be so disgusting. How many female classmates will bury themselves in bed and shed tears of envy tonight? I don't remember, but he said he was the one who chased me. Holy crap, is this true? If anyone tells anyone about this, it'll be a good addition to your resume. I smiled awkwardly, but also breathed a sigh of relief. It seems that last night was just a dream, and dreams and reality are the opposite. The gloom in my heart gradually dissipated, and after a quick wash, I rushed downstairs without stopping. Christopher, I'm sorry I overslept. The moment Christopher saw me, he straightened up a little. The tone of voice is lazy, with a long dragging tail. Did you forget what we agreed on last night? I pursed my lips shyly and whispered, Elder brother. Christopher was satisfied and raised his hand as if to touch my head. But at this time, there were many classmates passing by, and his hand paused for a moment, and finally he just helped me press down the tuft of hair that was sticking up. Be polite but don't overstep the boundaries. Intimacy but only a brief taste. With the remaining uneasiness in my heart, I don't know where the recklessness came from, but I just went straight up. This made Christopher stunned for a moment. You're so proactive, aren't you afraid? I know what he means. He was afraid of being criticized for being too close to me. Although the social atmosphere has become much more open, this matter is still somewhat novel. Facing the sudden surprised looks from others, I looked at him with full trust. No. Actually, I was scared and even a little uneasy. I was afraid that the distant and cold Christopher in my dream last night was real and out of my reach. I feel at ease only when I am in close contact with him. Christopher walked me to the door of the professional course classroom and left first because he had a class. I looked at his lazy back and turned to walk into the classroom. Seriously, it felt like a 100,000-volt spotlight was hitting me in the face. With a light cough, I slowly sat down with the breakfast Christopher bought for me. Then I heard a burst of whispers, and Christopher's and my name and the word non-tung were mentioned frequently. Okay, gossip spreads really fast in school. While I was drinking soy milk and reading the gossip posts in the school chat room, several classmates came to ask me why I asked for leave yesterday. I couldn't really remember who they were, but I replied briefly and politely that I was sick. Then he pretended not to see the gossip in their eyes. Fortunately, the professor arrived soon and the discussions were suppressed. But throughout the class, some people still turned their heads and looked at me from time to time. I calmly let them stare at me, waiting to find Christopher after the get out of class. But when the class was over, I was about to stand up when I was blocked by a tall and strong boy. Daniel, since you are a gay, why did you pretend to be pure and reject me? As soon as these words were spoken, the students who were packing their things suddenly slowed down. Those who were playing with their cell phones moved their fingers even faster, as excitedly as if they were sending a telegram. Under the spotlight of everyone, I raised my head and looked at the boy in a daze. Common face, short neck. I really can't remember. He shouldn't be an important person. After all, I will still remember such a brainless and stupid classmate even if I lose my memory. So I responded politely. Who are you? The boy was stunned, and then his face twisted with anger. Hey, you're pretending to be innocent and now you're pretending not to know him? You've lost all your dignity for Christopher's money. No matter how good-tempered I am, I now understand that this person is here just to cause trouble. At this point, my face turned cold. When I put my school bag down and prepared to confront him head-on, a familiar lazy voice came from the classroom door. I wish he could stay with me. What the hell is it to you? The boy who was so aggressive just now suddenly became like a chicken with its neck strangled. He wanted to say something else, but seeing Christopher's unsmiling expression, he turned around and walked away dejectedly. I hurriedly took the bag and ran over to Christopher. I don't know how much Christopher just heard and whether he will think too much about it. I lowered my eyes and wanted to explain. That person just now. Christopher asked me another question. Are you hungry, baby? I didn't react. Huh. Then please do me a favor and follow me to eat something good. I was silent for a moment, then looked up and smiled at him obediently. Good. Christopher believes me. He's so nice. I followed Christopher out of the classroom with a surging heart, and ran into a few boys with lewd smiles. Wow, my dream actually came true. I thought the people in the group were just talking nonsense. Hello, Junior. I'm Christopher's roommate. He looks like a playboy, but he's actually a very clean man. Ever since he fell in love with you in the library, he's been thinking about how to create an encounter with you every day. He's definitely a bootlicker. That's right, he talks about your name in his sleep, but he's just too scared to confess to you, huh? After being exposed, the boy next to them looked at them impatiently. If you have something to say, say it. If not, get out of here. Okay, I won't disturb your date with my junior, let's go. Gubie, junior. I said goodbye to them with a smile, but my heart was soft. It turns out that Christopher is like this in private. I tugged at the sleeve of the boy next to me and couldn't help but ask a question. Christopher, why didn't you just confess to me? The boy took my hand and walked out, replying to me calmly. I thought you were homophobic. It suddenly dawned on me. It turned out that he had misunderstood, so he was having a secret crush on her. But fortunately we were together in the end. Facing the kind or malicious gazes from others, I happily moved closer to him. Christopher and I continued our relationship. Sweet and intimate. The excitement about our relationship in the school chat room was quickly replaced by the pressure of the final exams. This made me feel relieved. Finally, it's not being discussed all the time. But as time went on, I gradually became confused. That is, Christopher never seemed to have very close contact with me. At most, they hold hands and touch each other's heads, but even hugs are rare. Shouldn't normal couples kiss each other? Could it be that he is in some kind of platonic relationship? But the look in his eyes when he looked at me was clearly so eager that it seemed like sparks were about to appear, and he was not reserved at all. But I was too embarrassed to ask. I always feel that Christopher seems to be leaving a way out for himself and for me. What is he afraid of? I kept it in my heart until I suffered from insomnia. Until one day Christopher's roommate had his birthday, and he took me to have dinner with him. The young boys were toasting each other and having a great time. This attracted many people to look over, especially Christopher, who was the most eye-catching. I was sitting next to Christopher, my mind was wandering, and I took a sip of wine without realizing it. Just one sip and I started to feel dizzy. Oh, it turns out I was a sucker before. I covered my face in pain and kept silent. Christopher soon noticed that something was wrong with me. Did you drink? I responded slowly. I vaguely heard Christopher chuckle, and then he seemed to turn around and say something to his roommates, causing a burst of laughter. Then I felt like I was being carried on someone's back again. The back was broad and strong, and exuded a pleasant and familiar smell. It made me feel so at ease that I felt sleepy. When I woke up again, I found myself sitting in the dormitory. The dormitory was very quiet, my roommates were not there, and my boyfriend Christopher was squatting in front of me taking off my shoes. This posture was a bit subtle, and it made my already dizzy head even more confused. I couldn't help but call him. Christopher. He just raised his eyelids and glanced at me. Even though I was not in a clear mind, I changed my words and said, Brother. What's wrong? Are you feeling uncomfortable? I shook my head and whispered, No, I just want to do something. What's up? Christopher stood up and sat next to me. When he lowered his eyes and looked at people, there was something bewitching about him. I looked at him dazedly, and then my eyes started to move downwards uncontrollably. Finally it fell on those thin lips. As the saying goes, alcohol makes cowards brave, so I just spoke directly what was in my mind. I want to kiss you. May I? As soon as he finished speaking, the dormitory fell into deathly silence. Christopher's eyes suddenly became scorching, burning my neck so much that it turned red. I just waited for a while, but he didn't make any move. I thought he was waiting for me to take the initiative, so I moved towards him. But just as I was about to kiss her, a bony finger gently pressed against my forehead. Then Christopher's slightly hoarse voice sounded, and he said, Daniel, no. Because I'm greedy enough. I blinked in confusion. I didn't understand what he meant. Then he seemed to say something else. But I was drunk again, and I groaned twice and fell asleep. I vaguely felt that someone was taking good care of me, I turned over comfortably. Well, it's nice to have a boyfriend, but I can't kiss him. 11. When I woke up the next day, I stared at the ceiling of the dormitory for a long time. Then he slowly curled up in the quilt and began to howl silently. What the hell? What did I do last night? I actually wanted to be a hooligan. But being a hooligan was bad enough. The most embarrassing thing was that I was rejected by Christopher. This made me so embarrassed that I wanted to buy a standing ticket and leave the earth overnight. After being embarrassed, I started to be emo again. Why would Christopher reject me? Was he just playing a trick on me? I feel extremely sad. So when I wanted to get out of bed to wash up, I didn't pay attention and stepped on empty air. He lost control and fell to the ground, hitting his head hard. Hiss. I gasped in pain. Unfortunately, there seems to be no one in the dormitory. I struggled to get up but started to feel dizzy. I felt like a lot of memories suddenly flooded into my mind, messy and confusing. It was so chaotic that my vision went dark and I passed out. When I woke up again, I was in the hospital. My roommate Taylor sat next to me. Hey, you finally woke up, Daniel? My already confused mind was a little confused. Taylor? Why am I in the hospital? We came back from a night of surfing the internet and found you lying on the ground motionless as soon as we entered the room. We immediately sent you to the hospital. Don't worry, it's just a kowtow, nothing serious. Your boyfriend will be here soon. I paused, rubbing my forehead, stunned. My boyfriend? Where did I get a boyfriend? Now it was Taylor's turn to be dumbfounded. No, it's your boyfriend Christopher, our campus idol. You two were kissing each other and going out to eat yesterday. Christopher? He's my boyfriend? I was completely stunned and my head was hurting. The two memories are intertwined, making it difficult for me to tell which is reality and which is a dream. At this time, a boy came into the ward in a hurry. He had a fine face, but his brows were knitted together. It's Christopher. Seeing me sitting there in a daze, he sighed, then immediately came over to hug me and comforted me in a deep voice. The refreshing and pleasant scent from him made my brain crash. I should have stayed with you last night. Are you still feeling bad, baby? Baby? Christopher called me baby? The roar in my head was rising and falling, and my heart was beating wildly. Taylor next to him chuckled and said, I won't bother you two anymore. By the way, Senior Christopher, something seemed to be wrong with Daniel just now. He actually forgot that he has a boyfriend. After saying that, he left sensibly. But Christopher, who was holding me, was completely frozen. After a moment, he slowly let me go and kept a polite distance from me. I looked up at him and found that his handsome face was full of regret and helplessness. Not at all like the flamboyant and unruly person he used to be. He asked me with a difficult voice, Daniel, do you remember? I nodded with a blushing face. I almost remember it. I remembered that I had always had a secret crush on Christopher, but I was afraid that he was homophobic, so I didn't dare confess my feelings. I could only secretly mark his contact information as boyfriend. After suddenly losing my memory, I actually mistook the man I had a crush on for my boyfriend. The fact that I like him is exposed immediately. But he did not refute or despise me, which really suited his identity. She was very nice to me and said she liked me. And coaxed me to call him brother. This is like a knife stabbing your butt, it opened your eyes. I moved my lips awkwardly, wanting to confirm something, but I didn't know how to start. Feel surrai. Christopher suddenly apologized and stared at me without blinking. My eyelashes trembled. It's okay, it's my fault. Then there was deathly silence. Suddenly, Christopher made a tisk sound. He came closer again and asked with some paranoia, Daniel, can we still be in love? I avoided his gaze and spoke in a muffled voice. I have no idea. I really don't know how to face Christopher. Before I lost my memory, I had a crush on him. After I lost my memory, I found out that he also liked me and became my boyfriend. This made me feel extremely happy, but also a little unreal and guilty. So I want to wait until my mind is completely healed before having a good talk with him. This is both a responsibility to him and a respect for him. Christopher should have noticed my discomfort, because he didn't act mean to me like before, but his eyes were still direct and passionate. After accompanying me back to school after being discharged from the hospital, Christopher brought me breakfast every day and picked me up after class. I casually mentioned a popular internet snack, and he would spend half a day going to the other side of the city to buy it for me. My shoelaces came undone while I was walking, and he squatted down naturally and frankly to help me tie them. Others were dumbfounded. It made me blush and my heart beat fast. For some reason I always feel like I'm a herbivore and he's a carnivore who covets me. It's hard to escape from his stare. Christopher's flamboyant yet humble style revived the school super topic which had been silent for a long time. Did they break up? Why haven't we seen them holding hands for a long time? What the hell, this is even more annoying to Nantung. Who knows, now I am like a dog. When will Daniel give a class to talk about the experience of taming a male god? I will kneel down to listen. Okay, I was fed dog food by you two just now at Lover's Lake. I saw it too. Daniel must have had a small stone in his eye, and the corner of his eye was red. Seeing this, I almost went wild and wanted to snatch Christopher's wife from him right there. 5 seconds later, this comment was deleted by the administrator of the super topic. Coincidentally, Christopher is the administrator. When Taylor showed me these things, he couldn't help but ask me, "What's going on between you and Senior Christopher?" Many people came to ask me secretly if you two had broken up. At that time, I was looking at the message Christopher sent me, and the corners of my mouth dropped slightly when I heard that. Appears to be in a depressed mood. No points, but we didn't talk about it either. Taylor looked confused. What do you mean? Did you have a fight? I told him everything that happened before and after I lost my memory, and wanted to hear what other people thought about this situation. After listening to this, Taylor repeatedly lamented Christopher's scheming. But then he spoke to me. But since you two like each other, the process is not important. So what's the most important thing? The result. Taylor's words made me suddenly enlightened. I have always believed that love is about the process rather than the result. But if you think about it from another perspective, since Christopher and I like each other, why should we spend so much time on it? Just be sweet and happy. After I figured it out, I planned to have an honest conversation with Christopher, but he asked me out on a road trip and camping first. He was accompanied by several of his roommates and good friends. That group of older boys all had a good relationship with Christopher. They seemed to be teasing me and Christopher along the way, but in fact they were trying to bring us together. I smiled and let them play. But when they were really embarrassed, they would subconsciously look at Christopher, and Christopher would kick them one by one to shut them up. Then it led to even louder ridicule. So when I was picked to play the dare game in the camping area, a group of boys grinned and told Christopher and I to go to the woods nearby for 10 minutes and then come back. This is the same effect as asking two people who are ambiguous to hide in a closet. I pursed my lips, stood up and walked towards the grove. Familiar footsteps soon followed behind me. The grove at night is quiet and eerie. The only sounds I could hear were Christopher and I breathing and a little light coming from the camp. I felt we had walked enough, so I stopped and took the opportunity to talk to Christopher. Unexpectedly, Christopher called me first. Daniel. I straightened my back and slowly turned around to look at him. The light was dim, the handsome boy lowered his eyebrows, and his outline was half clear and half blurred. What's wrong? There are some bugs flying around there, just like they took medicine. Come over here. I'm a boy, why should I be afraid of bugs? Although I said this, my body still honestly leaned towards him. As a result, he tripped over a protruding tree trunk on the ground and fell straight towards Christopher. Christopher stretched out his hands and held me in his arms, and my nose was filled with a fresh breath. I managed to steady myself and hurriedly thanked him. Thanks. It's no use talking politely, why don't you take some real action? The boy's tone was frivolous, and I subconsciously wanted to push him away. What do you want to do? I want to kiss you. 15. I still remember that he refused to let me kiss him, so I deliberately refused. No. Christopher didn't say anything, just looked at me. My heart softened and I immediately stammered, then just once. But just as I was about to raise my face to kiss him, the ground suddenly shook. Branches and twigs began to fall, and insects and birds flew around. The screams of people in the camping area in the distance, accompanied by the roar of the ground, made people's hearts rise instantly. "There's an earthquake. Careful!" I was confused. Earthquake? When people face danger, they always freeze subconsciously. But when I reacted quickly, Christopher had already carried me towards the open area. His usual lazy look suddenly disappeared, and instead he became unusually cold and stern. It makes me feel at ease. Fortunately, we were not far from the camp and ran back quickly. Just when I was about to breathe a sigh of relief, Christopher suddenly pushed me hard. As I fell to the ground in a mess, I heard a loud bang of a big tree hitting the ground behind me. Without caring about the pain, I turned my head hastily. Christopher was lying next to a big tree, unconscious. At that moment I felt the blood start to flow backwards, and I immediately crawled to his side. "Christopher?" No response. I didn't dare to delay and immediately carried him on my back and walked towards my friends. As I staggered, I thought of Christopher carrying me on his back. Always calm and powerful. My nose started to feel sore, but I tried to hold it back. Fortunately, he ran into Christopher's roommates who were looking for us. The earthquake just happened to stop. We drove down the mountain in a hurry, but there were too many tourists going down the mountain at the same time, which completely blocked the road. I sat in the car holding Christopher's head, feeling extremely anxious. "Don't worry, Daniel. I just saw on the news that it was a magnitude 5 earthquake. The damage to the road is not serious, and the rescue team is on the way. Stop talking nonsense, go and ask the people in front to make way, otherwise Christopher will become a muggle." His friends got out of the car and asked for passage. At this moment, the boy in her arms moved, accompanied by a low cry of pain. Hiss. I was surprised and happy. "Christopher, you're awake. Is your head still hurting?" When his roommate heard the noise, he immediately got into the car to see what was happening. Christopher is awesome. He was fine even after being hit on the head by a tree. As expected, he is the most handsome man. Amid the noise, the boy slowly opened his eyes filled with my happy face. With great anticipation, Christopher looked at me, frowned slightly, and spoke coldly. "Who are you?" Everyone was stunned. 16. I was even more at a loss. Christopher lost his memory after being hit by a tree? What kind of Bloody Mary Sue plot is this? It's your turn to lose memory, right? He became my boyfriend when I lost my memory, and he simply forgot about me when he lost his memory. My eyes immediately turned red and my nose felt sore. At this moment, Christopher's eyes changed. He stood up and hugged me in amusement, raising his hand to wipe my tears. "Daniel, why are you so easily deceived?" I'm wrong, stop crying." I was even more confused. "You didn't lose your memory?" "No, I was just teasing you." What a teasing. His bad mentality is really laughable. I raised my hand and punched him on the arm. Christopher didn't dodge. He smiled and held my hand and kissed it. The friends nearby also breathed a sigh of relief and then laughed and scolded. "I've already kowtowed to others for you, and you're just playing tricks on me. Respect the blessing and lock it up. No more gifts for marriage. So we are also part of your play, damn." Christopher accepted all the requests and finally agreed to take them out for a seafood dinner to settle the matter. After they left cursing, we were the only two left in the car. Christopher suppressed the smile on his face and looked down at me seriously. "Daniel, don't worry, even if I really lose my memory, I will still remember that you are my favorite person." I coughed lightly. Could it be that the note you gave me is also about boyfriend? That's not the case. As he spoke, he took out his cell phone, tapped it a few times with his fingertips and showed it to me. I saw that he marked my contact number as baby. It represents his cherishment and love for me. As always, affectionate and ambiguous. "Christopher, what would you have done if I hadn't called you after I lost my memory?" Christopher squeezed my hand slowly. "I will probably be unable to resist pursuing you soon, even if you reject me." "Won't." I moved closer to him, smelling the mixed scent of leaves on his body and the scent of laundry detergent on his clothes, and looking at the small scratch on his neck. Because I fell in love with you at first sight. So I won't reject you. Christopher, let's fall in love. Let's have a serious talk while we are both rational. Christopher was stunned. He didn't expect that I, who was usually gentle, would be so straightforward. Then his eyes suddenly lit up with brilliant colors. Just like the first time I saw him. Dazzling. Christopher bent down and kissed me, seriously and sincerely. Hello, I am indeed your boyfriend. 17. Christopher's perspective. Yes, this patient has amnesia. I watched the doctor's mouth moving constantly, but the phrase, "good luck is coming," kept playing in my mind. Daniel lost his memory. But she somehow treated me as her boyfriend. This can be considered a blessing in disguise. I couldn't calm down for a long time. I finally calmed down a bit, and when I turned around I saw Daniel looking at his phone and smiling. The bags under the eyes are plump, pure, and beautiful. What are you grinning about? He handed me his phone with a blushing face and said, Christopher, I have a lot of photos of you in my phone. How can I describe the shock I felt at that moment? If he may have just made a wrong call before, how to explain those secretly taken photos? There is only one explanation. He likes me too. It's great that the person I like also likes me.